Hey everyone, this is Nat from Wellness with Nat, and today I'm talking to you about acceptance. I feel like it should be acceptance with like dun 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 kind of music happening. Um, so I guess this topic came up in the group because we were talking about, you know, sometimes it's really hard to accept the shit that's happening in our life, whether it's bad relationships, something goes wrong at work, we end up having, you might be fired from a job, or you might have applied for a job and the job seemed really great at the time, but now that you're there, you're really not enjoying the job. And how do you accept this? Because you kind of need the money to pay your way. Um, or, uh, for me, my health, my vision, how do I accept that I can never work full time again, or accept that, I might not be able to work in an office like I used to do. I had to change who I was and what I was happy with doing, let alone the whole acceptance of being blind when I had the blind cane. Um, so acceptance for me is a topic I'm very, very, very familiar with. And so what I'm going to do today is I'm going to talk a little bit about what acceptance is and isn't. And then I'm going to give you, because I like the Buddhist side and the Western mindfulness side. So I'm going to talk about how we do those two sides. I'm just going to give like a little overview of each. And with that overview, it includes different mind reframes. So yeah, it'll come out. Hopefully not too big, because I've been researching for a couple of days and there are so many amazing things that I could include, but that would be like an hour-long video. So this is just highlighting what it is and how it can help you today and get you started. And if it's something that you're interested in, let me know and I can perhaps do some worksheets on it and stuff like that as well. So when we think about acceptance, often, people kind of think, oh, I've just got to accept that. It means I just have to let it go. And the great thing is in both Buddhism and Western psych, acceptance is not that. There's neither branch of wisdom expect you to be able to have a problem and then wish it away. So that's hopefully that's like, oh, okay, cool. And another word for acceptance might be willingness. Your willingness to see something through, your willingness to allow something to be in your life, even if it's unpleasant. And it's also about, another word for acceptance could be expansion or befriending. You might have heard me say before that, when we talk about our problems or our anxieties or our fears, our worries, that when we have them, we're internalizing and we're holding on. But what if you made room for that discomfort, and you could either make room by kind of, holding it a little bit further away from you? Actually, there's this cool exercise. If you've got a piece of paper, this is a really good example of acceptance. Um, so if you think, you could even write down your issues if you wanted to write them down and put them on your piece of paper, or just imagine them. And if you get your piece of paper and you hold it out in front of you, and you keep holding it, and the longer you start to hold it, your arms start to get really heavy, don't they? And if you wanted to do anything else, like if you wanted to scroll through your phone, or you wanted to hug a loved one, or you wanted to make yourself a cup of tea, you can't do it because your worries, this piece of paper, your worries are just, they're away from you as far as they can be. It's taking a lot of your energy to push them away, right? But then what happens if you got these worries, whether it was your relationships or your job, and you popped it in your lap? So you still have your worries, they're still here, they're still right next to you. But now you've got your hands free. Now your mind is a little bit freer because they're not right in your face either. You're still able to hug someone you love, or scroll your phone, or make a cup of tea. It's that whole, that's the idea of acceptance. It's that I've got my problems, but instead of holding them and pushing them away and them taking all my attention, I've got them, but they're just sitting in my lap. You're making room for them. Or the bit I like to do is I sit my problems next to me and I think of them like a friend sitting next to me. And so acceptance isn't just tolerating something or just putting up with it. Okay, that's not acceptance. That's starting to hold on, and all your emotions are sinking in to your body, getting attached as more stress. And so again, we can use that blue sky analogy. So, the blue sky is always there, and when the sun's shining, there's no worries for that day, really, is there? Everything's bright and beautiful and clear. But when those dark grey storm clouds come, that the sky is still there. The sky makes room for them. The blue sky, when we get in a plane and we fly above those clouds, the sky has just made room for the storm to pass. And so again, it's that, I keep coming back to this analogy because it's really important to try and see that innately we can be the blue sky if we just allow the other stuff to know that, it can be the worst and horrific of storms. It could be the most detrimental of storms, but soon it will pass. Particularly if we don't try to change it, hey? So I'm just going to outline quickly the two different styles of acceptance we'll start with the Buddhist side. And again, if you want more details, let me know and I can do a session on those. So in Buddhism, we learn about the Four Noble Truths. And the Four Noble Truths are the basis of the Buddha's teaching. And basically, what he tells us is that suffering is inevitable. Life is full of suffering. From the moment we're born, as we get sick, we age, and then inevitably we die, and all of that brings suffering. And then he said that then they talk about the cause of suffering. So two, the cause of suffering. And the cause of our suffering, so knowing that things are going to be shit anyway, but what makes our suffering worse is our craving to be happy, is our craving for everything to be wonderful. And that's that expectation and our attachment and our desires that we have that make our suffering even worse. Where as a Buddhist, something I practice to do all the time is to witness the experiences that are unpleasant, that cause me suffering. And then I try not to take them all on board. And I try not to think it's the end of the world, or that it's only me, or that nothing will get better. And try to lose the victim mentality with these teachings. And the way that we do that is with the third noble truth, which is the end of suffering. So as Buddhists, our suffering can be ended by being reminded that all of these sadness and sufferings I'm going through, the troubles, are only temporary. So again, that's that wonderful sky analogy, yeah? That's those storm clouds aren't going to be there forever. They might be there for days or weeks, but they're going to move along. And it's not always tremendous heavy rain that whole time. It's it's sometimes light rain, sometimes wind, sometimes whatever else is happening with the weather. And or like the cherry blossom tree analogy from Japan, that our suffering is like that of the cherry blossom tree's life. That in spring all the flowers are in bloom and it is beautiful, but then come winter, it's going through the depths and the cold, and all the flowers have come off, and that represents our hard times. Again, reminding us that when spring comes, because spring will come, complete suffering 100% of the time for your entire life is only possible if we continually hope for the flowers, but if we learn to ride with it, then that can ease the suffering. So I can talk more on that if you like, just let me know. And so it's remembering that the impermanence of all things, the temporary nature. And then the fourth noble truth is the path of the Dharma. And so the Buddha says that, we're suffering, everyone suffers. Suffering is inevitable and it's caused by your desire and attachment to pleasant things. You can end suffering by remember that you just got to go through this stage temporarily, the impermanence of all things, like the cherry blossom tree seasons. And the fourth one is remembering all of these and using the Buddha's teachings, just like what I'm teaching you along the way. We use all of those to help understand our mind and to help move through it. So that has helped me a real lot. That's why I show up to my Buddhist classes once or twice a week, and then I'm reteaching to you guys because it's something that is to keep letting it go through your mind. So then what's the Western psychology side? So I'm trained in Russ Harris's acceptance and commitment therapy. So, and that's what my psych gave to me when I was ready to have to learn to accept this blind cane stuff that I was going through. So basically, in a nutshell, the idea behind acceptance in the Western psych way is also similar to Tara Brach, which we've talked about, the rain, and the so radical acceptance is all about, like they call it radical because to accept some of the shit that's happening in our life is pretty crazy because most people don't want to accept stuff. But the idea behind it, so there's 4 steps again. And the idea here is when you're faced with your issue, try and problem solve it. So is this a problem that can be solved or not? Yeah. And then I might send you some tips on this one so that you can see what to do. If you can't solve the problem, then can you change your perception of the problem? Can you reframe it? Can you see that, perhaps if there's some difficulty happening in your life, perhaps difficulty with a person, is there another way to look at it? Is there something positive in that relationship that you'd want to stay around for? And number 3 is radically accepting the situation. So when we talk about accepting the situation, and the bit I love about Western psychology is they even say you may need to accept the situation 50 times in a minute. Like you'd literally be there going, okay, I'm going to be okay with this. Oh my God. And then another thought comes through and you're like, I'm not okay with this. And then you go through it again, Well, basically, you're accepting reality as it is. So rather than how you believe it should be, what you're going to do is you're going to, instead of holding that paper out here really tightly, whoops, it's writing, holding it out really tightly, you're just going to lay it down in your lap. You're going to just be, you're going to detach from the story of right or wrong or fair or unfair, who's right, who's wrong, this is okay, this isn't okay, why me? We're detaching and loosening the grip on all of that. And again, this isn't a linear process. You're not going to definitely just go through stages and then all will be okay, because the human mind, our monkey mind, is going to want to keep bringing up everything, isn't it? That dear monkey mind that, remember, all of this stuff that we don't want to accept, all of the fear we're holding on to, all of the judgment and the rejection, it's all because we're trying to keep ourselves safe. Our mind is seeking to be as safe as it can be and as happy as it can be. But knowing that, our body and our mind are just trying to look out for us, that's part of minding your mind, and then we're coming back to this observer view type thing. And so then the fourth bit here, which I love, your fourth option is always to stay miserable, not accept it, and just keep holding on to this shit for as long as you need. And, when I work with clients, and I think even with myself, I'm like, oh, but I don't want to stay miserable. I'm like, all right, well, if I don't want to stay miserable, what were the choices again? 1, problem solve. And is any of this in my control or is it not? 2, can I change my perception of the problem? 3, am I going to radically accept it, even if just for a moment, before I decide to get back to 4 and be miserable again? Um, so yeah, basically the idea is that whether it's with your physical pain or emotional pain, um, relationships, work, health, aging, family, friends, job, finances, home, the whole myriad of life, that this isn't something that, when you get, sometimes I often get blokes say to me, that was yesterday's news, I'm over it. And that's really great. Some people are wired to think that way. A lot of us aren't. So that, all of those areas of life that I just brought up, when we have pain with those, that's causing us pain, and when we don't accept them, that is when our suffering explodes. That's when stuff plays in our mind more, and the guilt, the shame, the rejection, the fear, the loneliness, the sadness, the anxiety, all just bubble up. But I like you to kind of consider, what if you had pain, but you accepted it? And then both Buddhism and Western psychology say that when we learn to accept our pain, when we learn to accept our suffering, that is what kicks off the impermanence. That is what's going to make it temporary. It's just going to be something we're going to go through for a while. And then it's so much lighter. And with that analogy, I was thinking, it's like when you watch a tree and you might just be sitting outside, and when you just notice that a leaf just comes down off the tree and just makes its way to the ground. There's no struggle with that leaf. There's no pain. It's just allowing itself to go through what it goes through before it gets to the ground. So as you're thinking of the things that are bothering you, that are troubling you, that you've been holding on to for a long time, I'd like you to see what would it be like if you were simply able to handle that situation with the ease and grace and lightness of a feather. So just a quick summary. Acceptance is not putting up with something. Acceptance is making room for it, either next to you. You might like to try the paper analogy, holding it out for a couple of minutes, and then putting it in your lap and just seeing how much better life is if we accept it. We have the Four Noble Truths from Buddhism. Life is full of suffering. It's inevitable. The cause is our expectations, desire, and attachment. Our desire to be happy and everything to be the way we want it to be. We can end suffering by loosening this grip and realizing that things are temporary and perhaps there's even some good in our life. And we do that by following the Buddhist practices. And then the Western Psych way, we problem solve it. We change our perception, if we can, and then we radically accept the situation, or we don't and we stay miserable. So I'll do up a little handout that goes along with these. And, another great way for acceptance is our values. Having decisions aligned to your values can be a really great way to know if you're if something's headed the right way. So if you'd like to hear more about values, let me know. That's something that I'm offering for the Tier 2 level guys, is a values session, which is really helpful in, making sure we're coming from the heart and less from our head. Okay, I hope that helps, and I'd love to hear your feedback. Okay, thank you. Have a great day.